All right, beautiful. Thank you for joining me for a Let It Go autumnal yoga and journaling class. We're going to do 60 minutes of pranayama breath work, asana postures, some gentle movement to relax our body, followed by 15 minutes of optional journaling. If journaling is not your thing, you're always welcome just to kind of like sit and listen and reflect, or silently show yourself out of the Zoom room at the hour mark, which is of course an option. This is a beginner-friendly class. It is a floor-based class. You will want a yoga mat or simply a carpeted area or a blanket. You'll want maybe like one pillow or blanket. It's not a prop-heavy class, but you might want a pillow or blanket nearby. And if you are staying for journaling, you will also want a pen and paper, but that'll happen much later, so you don't need to worry about that right now. Okay. So we're going to start in a comfortable seated position. You can sit in Sukhasana, easy pose with knees bent, one foot in front of the other. You can also sit crisscross applesauce if that feels better. Again, the whole theme of this class is just kind of letting go of our summer season so we can really get into the fall autumnal spirit. You can place your hands on your knees and maybe rock your sit bones back and forth, side to side. Start to sit up nice and tall. You might roll your shoulders forward a few times, just getting some gentle motion in your body, backward a few times. Maybe rolling one shoulder and then the other. Took a yoga class recently where we did this and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. The one shoulder at a time roll is a little sassy. I like it. Okay, and then drop your shoulders down, lift your chest and take a nice easy breath in through your nose. Anything you'd like to let go of. Exhale, let it go through the exhale breath. We're actually going to start with a like a central nervous system soothing technique called self-havening. And the idea behind self-havening, it's used in some therapies, including for people with complex PTSD. It's the idea that when you receive a hug, for example, or a loving touch, your body releases serotonin, right, a happy chemical. The really cool thing about your body is it does not know the difference between someone else hugging you and you hugging you, or someone else giving you a gentle touch and you giving yourself a gentle touch. The idea is we'll just kind of like love on ourselves for a few minutes. And again, this is called self-havening, like Haven. And if it speaks to you, you are welcome to Google it after class and look into it more. So I'm going to start sitting up nice and tall. You're just going to place your hands just above your brows, and with a very gentle, almost like petting sensation, you're going to pet from the inner brows through the temples. And it doesn't need to be like a hard push, right? It's like a gentle touch. Okay. From here, you can do your under eye area, always sweeping in to out. And there's also this idea that we're just kind of getting some blood flow into the face here, and in a minute into the lymphs. So from here, you're going to sweep from your temple area down through the side neck, getting some lymphatic drainage going as well. Okay, here's where it gets fun. You're going to cross your arms, doesn't matter which is on top of the other, and just send a nice loving touch from the shoulders to the elbows. And especially if one of your love languages is touch, you might recognize this is feeling really good. Okay, and then the last one is you're gonna place one arm on top of the other, and you're just gonna gently slide from the inner elbow through the fingertips, and you can kind of alternate which arm is on top. Again, this is called self-havening. And it's used in a lot of therapeutic modalities, but I find that there's like a nice overlap with yoga, right? Because we're starting to become a little bit more aware of our body, moving in time and space. And we're also recognizing that we don't need to look for external validation or like external love, right? We can love on ourselves and validate our own experiences in our body and our breath and our mind through a yoga practice. Great, bring your arms down by your side. Once again, you can roll your shoulders forward a few times. backward a few times. And there's some styles of yoga which I enjoy where, movement is really intense and like we're sweating and being really cardiovascular. This class is going to be a little bit more subtle. And I invite you just to kind of contemplate what it means to have a subtle yoga practice, right? Bigger isn't always better. A little bit goes a long way, right? Relax your shoulders, sit up nice and tall. And we're just going to do one more round of that self-havening, taking your hands just above the brows and gently swiping from the top brows to the temples. Again, in a loving way, you're not like pushing into your eyes in any way. Great, then from the inner eye, just below the eye, out to the temples. Just a gentle, soft touch. This is a practice of being gentle and soft with yourself. Great, now from the temple area down through the outside of the neck to the shoulders. Great, this time giving yourself a hug from the shoulders to the elbows. Last but not least, from the inner elbow, swiping through to the palms to the fingers. And you can alternate which arm is on top. Great, and as you're ready, take your hands outside to the floor. Sitting up tall, you can push your fingertips into the floor, drop your shoulders. We'll take one more cleansing breath in through the nose. Anything you'd like to let go of. Exhale through the mouth, let it go. Okay, we'll start to get a little bit more motion in the body. Take an inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead, big expansive gesture, stretch up. Exhale, arms down, and if you want, you can even flutter your fingertips like falling leaves. A little bit silly, but also maybe fun. Let's try that again. Inhale, sweep your arms up like a big gust of wind. Beautiful. Exhale, float your arms down like leaves falling from the trees on a crisp autumn day. Good. Inhale, arms up. This time, palms in prayer. Beautiful. Exhale, pull your hands to your heart center. Great, arms down. We'll do that again. Inhale, arms up, palms in prayer. Slow exhale through your nose as you pull your hands down. This time, let your thumbs rest at heart center and drop your head slightly as if you're bowing to yourself. We'll take a breath here. So remember throughout class that you're your greatest teacher, and if at any point something that I'm suggesting does not feel right for you, you are welcome to take a different version of a posture or breathing exercise. You're welcome to do something entirely different. You're also welcome simply to take a break or sit or lie down and focus on your breath. At times we might do things that get you out of your comfort zone, and that's okay, right? But if it's something where it doesn't feel right for you, or you're not going to feel good tomorrow, I invite you really to listen to yourself during this class. Okay, we're going to come onto all fours in a tabletop position. If you have tight knees, toes, or ankles, you are welcome to roll up your yoga mat, or if you don't have a yoga mat, you can place like a thin blanket or towel under any delicate joints in the lower body. Then from here, coming into a tabletop position with your wrists underneath your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Hands shoulder width distance, knees and feet hip width distance. Spread your fingers wide, root down through your knuckles and palms so that you're not putting all of your body weight on your wrists. We're going to cat-cow. Take an inhale through your nose. Exhale through your nose, pull your abdomen in, round your spine like a Halloween cat, meow. So if you've ever carved a pumpkin with a cat on it, right, you can see why this is called cat pose. We're kind of rounding our spine up towards the ceiling. On your next inhale, cow pose, moo, you're going to let your abdomen hang heavy like a cow. Stick your butt up, roll your shoulders back and down, send your gaze up towards the ceiling, lift your chin and chest. Exhale, cat pose. So you're rounding your spine, compressing the abdominal wall. Keep your shoulders out of your ears. Think about pressing your hips to your ribs, ribs to hips. Draw your belly button up towards the ceiling. Inhale, cow. Relax your abdomen down. Send your tailbone up. Roll your shoulders back and down. Again, shoulders out of the ears, neck long, look up. Good. Exhale into your cat pose, extension to the spine, compression to the abdominal wall. Inhale into your cat pose, compression to the spine, extension to the abdominal wall. Good. Exhale back into a neutral spine position. This time, rather than being a cat or a cow, you're going to be a dog, woof woof. As you're ready, imagine with a dog's tail, you're going to swing your hips to the left and then look over your left shoulder like you're a dog chasing its own tail. Good. Come back to center. This time, move your hips and tail to the right. Look over your right shoulder. So we're stretching the left side body, squeezing into right side body. Good. Come back to center. Let's do that again. Move your tail to the left. Look over left shoulder. Good. Come back to center. Swing your hips to the right. Look over right shoulder. Good. Come back to center. And from here, if you'd like, you can make some circles with your hips and your shoulders, moving clockwise and counterclockwise. Great. Come back to a neutral spine position. You're welcome to take another cat-cow. You can also join me in a down dog. You're going to tuck your toes under, push your knuckles into the floor, and then lift your hips up towards the ceiling, lengthen your legs, press your heels down to the floor. You can keep your feet hip-width distance. If your heels are not touching the floor, you might open up your steps so that your feet are wider than your hips, and that will help you bring the heels down. If you have tight hamstrings, you can micro bend your knees to take weight away from the backs of the legs. Otherwise, press your knees back, lift your hips up, heels down, press your knuckles down. Take a breath here. Inhale and exhale. Good. As you're ready, you're going to look forward, bend your knees, coming back onto your knees. This time, open your knees a little bit wider than your hips. Your knees can be about the width of your mat if you have a yoga mat. Bring your big toes together. We're going to take a wide-legged child's pose. Sink your hips back as you reach your arms forward, bringing your forehead down towards the floor. And again, you're welcome to roll up your yoga mat so that you have extra padding under toes, ankles, or knees. If you have a pillow nearby, it can also be helpful for some folks to place a pillow in between the calves and the hamstrings. There's a little extra padding there. You can also place a pillow under your chest or your forehead if that feels a little bit more supported. Again, this is not a prop heavy class, but I find sometimes just a simple like pillow or blanket can make a little bit of difference in making the posture not just more accessible, but more comfortable. Again, this class is not about getting like the deepest stretch ever. It's about kind of letting go of some stuff so that we can make room for what's to come. So let go of any expectations for your class. You might let go of any judgments about, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? All you do today is make it onto your yoga mat and take a few breaths, maybe even take a nap. Let that be enough, right? Here in child's pose, you're stretching through your toes, your ankles, your knees, and the inner thighs and hips. You're lengthening from the lower back, middle back, upper back, all the way through the neck spine. As you're ready, start to walk your hands to the right side of the room, bringing your forehead in between the arms. And if you'd like, you can place your left hand on top of your right hand. So a little bit of a spine movement as well. We're gently stretching the left side body, squeezing into right side body. Take a breath here. If your left hand is on top of your right hand, you can uncross your hands, walk your hands back to center. And we'll do the other side. Walk your hands to the left side of the room, keeping your head in between arms. And if you'd like, you can cross your right hand, I should say, on top of left hand. Your hands are crossed, uncross hands, walk your hands back to center. And this time, if you'd like, lift your head slightly, keep your left arm in front of you, left palm on the floor. You can thread your right arm underneath your left arm, palm facing up. This is a shoulder deltoid stretch. You've got it, forehead towards the floor. All right, you're going to unthread that needle, slide your right arm out from under, reach your right arm forward, other side. Take your left arm underneath right arm, left shoulder towards the floor, palm faces up. Take a breath here. Remember that everything we do in this class is optional. So if, for example, this does not feel good to you, you're welcome to keep both arms in front of you in your child's pose, right? Otherwise, we're just getting a little deltoid shoulder stretch. Great. Slide your left arm out from under you. One more time, reach your arms forward, sink your hips back, take a breath. Great, walk your hands in underneath your shoulders, press your knuckles into the floor and roll yourself up. Ooh, sitting up nice and tall, beautiful. Again, you can, I'm a little blurry here. You can roll your shoulders forward a few times, backward a few times. Good, and then if you'd like, you can place your hands on your back. There we go, hands on your back and do a little back bend. Always, I think everything, there's a metaphor for everything, but I don't know what the metaphor is when my Zoom camera is blurry, but lift your nose and chin, doing a little back bend, heart opener. Good, and then come back to a neutral spine position. If you, let's see here, if you have your yoga mat rolled up, you're going to unroll your yoga mat and then turn, make your way onto your back. We're gonna start in collapsed bridge pose. So lying on your back, bend your knees so that your feet are on the floor about hip width distance and let your knees rest together. From here, you can move your hips right and left, back and forth, almost like a windshield wiper. Good. And then come back to center, let your knees rest together. So this is a nice resting posture option, especially for anyone with lower back pain. You're welcome to stay in collapsed bridge. You can also try another restorative posture called Savasana or corpse pose. And in this posture, you're just going to lower your legs down so that your legs are straight. And if you find when you lower your legs down that it hurts your lower back, you can go back into collapsed bridge. So for the rest of class, this is our home base. And again, if there's any posture or breath work that doesn't feel right for you, of course, you're welcome to do something else, or you can just go back into your Savasana or back into your collapsed bridge. And these are nice, again, restorative postures where you can still feel your body move with your breath. Can be present in your yoga practice, can be mindful, not just of how you're moving, but what thoughts you're thinking, right? So you're still in your yoga practice, even if a certain posture or breathing exercise doesn't feel right for you. Okay. If your legs are straight in Savasana, you're going to bend your knees again so that your feet are on the floor. We're going to take happy baby, lift both feet off the floor, keep your knees bent, flex your toes back. You are welcome to grab the backs of your legs, the backs of your knees. You can grab your ankles or you can grab your feet from the outside. And from here, I invite you to rock right and left a few times, which is a nice way to roll out your back. And then maybe as you roll to the right, you can straighten your right leg, stretching the inner thigh, come back to center, bend the right knee, roll to the left, straighten your left leg, stretching the inner thigh, come back to center. So just rocking out your body. Beautiful. And you can come back to center here and hold. It's a great hip opener and inner thigh stretch. Think about softening through your hips and shoulders. Let your head be heavy on the floor. Let the floor hold you up. You are welcome to stay here in happy baby. If you'd like to play around, we can also try a upright version of this called malasana or garland pose, sometimes called a yogi squat. And you're welcome to try it. And if it just doesn't feel right for you, you can come back to happy baby. So know that this is our home base for this posture. Otherwise, if you'd like, release the grip on your feet or the backs of your legs, bring your knees, feet together, and like a happy baby, you can roll off to one side, whee, and then press yourself up into a seated position. I always encourage play in class. Okay, from here, keep in mind that you've been sitting for a while, so especially if you have low blood pressure, be very mindful. We're going to slowly start to stand up, and you're going to bring your feet apart so that your heels come in and your toes come out. Now, depending on your body proportions, you can have like a 3 to 4 foot step between your heels. For my body proportions, a smaller step helps, but for some folks, just know that your step can be like as wide as a like a yardstick. Keep your knees bent. You're going to lean forward, put your hands on the floor, and then start to bend your knees and come down. And again, for me, a smaller step actually helps me sit down, but for some folks, a bigger step will help you. If your heels are way off the floor, that is really normal. You can place your hands on the floor in front of you so that you feel supported. If you have a pillow or blankets nearby, you can also place those underneath your heels, if that helps you. And then you can still feel your heels down, right? They're just under something. So this is an option as well. If you've tried, again, this is the Sanskrit name for this is malasana or garland pose, but some people call it a yogi squat. If you've tried yogi squat and you're like, this is not for me, you can go back into happy baby. If you are in your yogi squat, you can start to bring your hands together in prayer, press your elbows out, lift your chest up, relax your shoulders down. From here, if you'd like, you're going to take your left hand down towards the floor and reach your right arm up and look up for a nice little twist. Beautiful. Come back to center, bringing hands in prayer. And we'll do the other side. Reach your right arm down, reach your left arm up, looking up and back. Beautiful. And come back to center, palms in prayer, shoulders down, chest up. Take a breath. Okay. If you're in garland pose, place your hands on the floor in front of you. Gently lift your hips up towards the ceiling, turn your toes back in. If you'd like a hamstring stretch, you can lift your hips all the way up, straightening the legs. And if you're in happy baby, you can also extend your heels up towards the ceiling, straightening the legs, getting a nice little hamstring stretch. Okay, if you're standing, you're going to slowly make your way back onto the floor, back into either collapsed bridge or savasana. And if you are in happy baby, you can release any grip you have from the backs of your legs or feet and make your way back into collapsed bridge or savasana. So again, you can have your feet on the floor, knees resting together, or legs down by your side, arms down by your side. Take a breath. We often store emotion in our hips, and the first time I heard a yoga teacher say, like, we store emotion in our hips, I like rolled my eyes and I was like, I don't understand what that means. But on a very, or that sounds like gauzy and airy, right? Like kind of like floofy. But on like a very real neurological level, we tend to hunch forward when we experience like stress or emotional pain or distress. The biological reason for that, right, is if, say, for example, you are running from a bear, you want to hunch forward to protect your internal organs, the most, essential part of your physical being. And so we tend to hunch forward to protect our body. Or, for example, in cold weather, if you dressed incorrectly today for the weather, you might have hunched forward, right, again, to keep the heat in the front of your body where your organs and glands are. And so even today, if let's say you weren't running from a bear, but maybe you got into a fight with like a friend or a conversation with a coworker got even just a little bit heated, you might start to round forward a little bit or tense up your shoulders or tuck your tailbone under, right? It's a biological response. And so when we do these hip openers, it starts to release some of that pent up stress. And again, the philosophy behind this yoga class of let it go is this idea that we're going to do some hip openers, some shoulder and chest openers, kind of to release any stress that you might have accumulated over the summer so that we can make room for some new interesting things in this next season of our lives. Take an inhale, feel your body rise. Exhale, body fall. Okay, you're going to bend your knees if they're not already. You're going to roll onto your abdomen. Sitting up tall here for this next posture, it's called open wing pose, and you will want a pillow for underneath your head or a little blanket. It doesn't need to be like the biggest pillow in the world, but a little rolled up blanket or pillow for your head so that you can keep your neck aligned. Okay, from here, let's see, which side do I want to show you first? From here, you're going to take your left arm out to the left. So wrist in line with shoulder. And you're going to start to roll your right hip on top of your left hip. Now, depending on your mobility, you can simply keep the right hip does not have to perfectly stack over the left hip. A little bit can go a long way. You can roll the right hip all the way over the left hip, bringing your left ear towards the floor. You can have your left leg long, and you can have your right knee bent, right foot on the floor in front or behind your left leg, depending on which feels better for you. You can keep your left hand on the floor for stability. You can also take your right arm up towards the ceiling, reach behind you, and you might even clasp your hands together. So again, this is called open wing pose. We're opening through the shoulders. Again, it does not need to be the deepest shoulder opener of all time. A little bit goes a long way. We'll take 3 slow breaths here. If your right arm is reaching behind you, you're going to take your right hand back towards the floor. If your right hip is stacked on top of your left hip, you're going to roll that right hip back down. And we'll do the other side. This time, take your right arm out to the right, wrist in line with shoulder. Placing your left hand on the floor outside of left shoulder, start to roll left hip on top of right hip. And again, depending on mobility, you might simply push your left hand into the floor ever so slightly. You might lift your left hip all the way up. You want to bring right ear towards the pillow. So again, your neck is nice and long. You can keep your left foot in front or behind of your right leg, depending on what feels more stable for you. You can keep your left hand on the floor, or you can reach your left arm up and reach behind you, maybe even clasping hands together. Ooh, and I have to say, this side feels very different from the other side, right? And that's okay. We're not symmetrical, and you do not need to be symmetrical to practice this class. We'll take 3 slow breaths here. And if you find that you want to take 3 really fast breaths so that you can get to the end of the posture earlier, that might be a sign that you've gone a little too far. You want to find a place that's sustainable where you can take a slow inhale and a slow exhale. If your left arm is straight behind you, reach your left arm up. Place your left hand back down on the floor. Beautiful. And then you're going to slowly roll back. So both hips are on the floor. For child's, not for child's pose, for belly savasana, you're welcome to keep the pillow under your head. You can also remove it and simply look to one side, one ear on the floor. Bring your big toes together and your heels apart for an inverse opening to the hips and pelvis. You can bend your arms, placing your hands on the floor close to your head. You can also take your arms down by your side, palms facing up for an inverse opening to the hips, to the shoulders. Send deep belly breaths in and out through your nose to massage the front of your body. Breathe deep into any point of tension. Let the floor hold you up. Gently lift your head and look to the other side, other ear on your mat. Feel your body rise and fall with your breath. From here, lift your head looking forward. Bend your elbows so that your forearms are on the floor, and we're going to take Sphinx pose to begin. Elbows under shoulders. Feet about hip width distance, feet can relax. If having your elbows directly under your shoulders feels like too much of a back bend, you can also walk your arms forward so that your elbows are in front of your shoulders. Roll your shoulders back and down, keep your neck long. So you do want to activate through the elbows and forearms so that your shoulders don't tense up, right? Shoulders back. This is our home base for this heart opening sequence. You are welcome to stay here with your legs long. You can also take half frog. Keep your right leg straight, and you're going to bend your left knee out to the left so the left toes come out to the left. You might have your knee in line with your hip and your ankle in line with your knee. So from a bird's eye view, left leg makes a 90-degree angle. This is too intense of a hip opener. You can also bring your knee a little bit lower than your hip, and it can also be helpful to place a pillow underneath your hip. We'll take 3 breaths here, shoulders out of the ears. Okay, if your left knee is bent, you're going to straighten your left leg back. And we will do the other side of our frog. Bend your right knee out to the right. Again, from a bird's eye view, your right leg might be at a 90-degree angle, ankle and knee in line, knee and hip in line, or the knee can be a little bit lower than the hip. And you might also place a pillow or blanket under your right hip if that feels better. Inhale. Exhale. On your inhale, stretch the crown of your head up. Exhale, shoulders down. Great. If your right knee is bent in half frog, you're going to straighten your back leg. You are welcome to stay in Sphinx, or at the end, you can take seal pose. Spread your fingers wide, press your knuckles down, straighten your arms, getting a little bit of a deeper back bend. Great. From here, bend your elbows coming back into Sphinx. Walk your hands under your shoulders. Lift your hips up, and we're going to go back into child's pose, right? Sink your hips back, reach your arms forward, take a breath. If you want to give your arms a break and it feels good, you can also bring your arms down by your side in fetal pose, palms facing up. The shoulders can relax. All right. Walk your hands in underneath your shoulders, press yourself up, rolling yourself up. So we did our half frog. Now we're going to try full frog pose, which is a big hip opener. And we can try frog pose, and if it doesn't feel right for you, you can go back and do a half frog instead. Otherwise, you're going to come onto all fours. And then you're going to have your toes pointing out, start to open your knees wider. So I'll show you what it looks like from the front. I don't do this posture a lot because I don't particularly like it, but it is a really good hip opener. So again, eventually you could almost imagine your hips could come down to the floor. You can keep your palms on the floor. You can also come down onto your forearms, but it is important to keep the shoulders out of the ears, toes pointing out. Shoulders out of the ears, neck long. And this is our frog pose, and we'll hold here for 3 breaths. Great. If you're on your forearms, place your hands on the floor, press yourself up, slowly slide your knees, feet back together, Great, and then you're gonna turn and lie on your back into our home base, which again can either be collapsed bridge with arms down by your side, feet on the floor, knees resting together, or Savasana with legs straight, arms down by your side. Okay, so there's a lot of hip and heart work. And sometimes the release from a posture can be as therapeutic or as intense as the posture itself. Sometimes coming out of a posture, you might sense a shift in blood flow, for example, like your feet might get warmer. You might feel something release, like in the lower back, for example. You might also feel an energetic or emotional or even like spiritual shift in consciousness. I think in yoga, we're called to pay attention because sometimes the really mundane and boring stuff exists right next to the really profound and mind-blowing stuff. So we're just called to observe what's going on in our own body. And sometimes one person might do a posture and be like, oh my gosh, I just had this like crazy realization about my life. And another person might do that same posture and be like, I don't get it. Or the same person, right, might practice something one day and go, oh, that was fine. And the next day practice the same thing and have a totally different experience. So we're not only not comparing ourselves to other people, but we're also not comparing our experience to what it was last time we practiced yoga, right? Or not. I think part of the practice is kind of releasing any expectations for not just how a posture should look, but how a posture should feel, right? So it's probably not just going to look different over time, but feel different class to class and breath to breath as well. And to me, the really neat thing about yoga is just that awareness, right? That being aware of how something feels in my body. That's actually the goal. Okay, bend your knees if they're not already with your feet on the floor. Keep your left foot on the floor, cross your right ankle over your left thigh for supine figure 4. Option to keep your left foot on the floor or lift your left foot off the floor, hugging your thighs in towards your abdomen. You can keep your hands on the floor. You can also grab the outsides of your legs. You can also take your right arm in between thighs, interlace fingers behind left thigh and pull down, keeping 2 shoulders and hips on the floor. This is a nice side seat stretch. You're lengthening from the lower back. And it's also a good stretch for sciatic nerve pain, right? Sciatic nerve is the longest nerve in our body. It's also very thick. The sciatic nerve is like as thick as your thumb. It runs from the lower back through the outer leg all the way to the foot. And here we're stretching out that nerve. Another thing about seasonal transitions that I don't feel like it's talked enough about is like our clothing and our footwear changes. And sometimes like what shoes you're wearing, for example, can affect your posture, can affect like what's going on in your back and your hips and your knees and your feet. And so having a consistent yoga practice, I think, helps us, be aware of maybe this footwear doesn't make my my back feel very good, right? And also just kind of helps us have, I think, like something to go back to during these transitions. So when the weather is changing, when your wardrobe is changing, when the sunlight to moon ratio is changing, you can still do this hip opener. You have an option to stay here or start to extend your left foot up towards the ceiling. And if you'd like, you can also flex your left toes back towards your face, stretching through the Achilles, the calf, and the back of the hamstring. You have an option to stay here in supine figure 4, either with leg extended or left knee bent. You can also try another fun version of this posture that's more upright. And again, you're welcome to try it. And if it doesn't speak to you, you can go back to figure 4. Otherwise, you're going to release the grip from the backs of your legs, slowly return your left foot to the floor, the right foot to the floor, roll onto your side, press yourself up. We're going to come back into tabletop. And again, this is just something for fun. You're welcome to stay in supine figure 4. Otherwise, we will take pigeon pose. You're going to start to slide your right knee towards your right wrist. Bring your right foot to the left, and then slide your left leg back. for pigeon pose. Eventually the hip might come down. It can also be really handy to place a pillow or blanket underneath your left hip. Look back, you want your ankle, knee, and hip in line. We'll start if you're in pigeon pose with a back bend. Extend your arms long. You can even tint your fingers if that feels good. Roll your shoulders back and down. Send your gaze up towards the ceiling. From here, if you're in pigeon pose, you're going to start to come down, maybe even bringing your elbows or forearms to floor. Keep your shoulders out of your ears, folding forward. Great. If you're folded forward, you're going to press your hands into the floor, walk your hands under your shoulders, press yourself up. Start to lift your hips up and back. Slide your right foot back to the right, right knee back, and then we're going to turn, make our way onto our backs. If you are in figure 4, release any grip you have from the backs of your legs. Everybody together, coming back into either collapsed bridge or savasana. A funny thing happens that I find is mirrored in both body, mind, and spirit. There are sometimes like we'll feel a tightness in our body and we just really want to like relax that part of the body and let it go. There's other times where for whatever reason, it's really hard to relax a certain part of the body or let go of an area that we're like clenching or tightening. And that might be in the body, but I find that that's also mirrored like in our more emotional, psychological, spiritual lives as well, that there's some junk that we're really ready to let go of. And sometimes it's still really hard to let go. So you might practice here on a physical plane, releasing through your shoulders, softening through your chest and abdomen, letting go of any tightness in the hips, the thighs, the feet, or the hands. And as you start to let go in the physical body, you might also consider what else you'd like to let go of. Whether it's a habit that maybe once served you or helped you survive, but is no longer helping you thrive, or maybe just a limiting self-belief. Certain feeling that's been following you around that's no longer serving you. You can practice letting that go the same way that we might let go of tightness in a calf muscle or a pinched shoulder, right? It doesn't always mean that it goes away immediately. Just setting that intention is a really great place to start. Let's try the other side of our hip opener. Bend your knees if they're not already, with feet on the floor. This time, keep your right foot on the floor across your left ankle over your right thigh. You can keep your right foot on the floor. You're also invited to lift your right foot off the floor, hugging your thighs in towards your abdomen. You can keep your hands on the floor. You can also grab the backs of your legs or interlace your fingers behind your right thigh. And again, you might observe that this side feels really different from the other side, or that figure 4 feels quite different from the last time you practiced this, particularly during seasonal transition where it's a little colder out, so it takes our muscles longer to warm up. That's okay too. Rather than judging yourself for being a little bit tight or maybe even like, I don't know, sometimes I come to class this time of year and I'm a little grumpy, right? Rather than judging yourself for whatever is going on in body, mind, and spirit. Just be really proud of yourself, not just for showing up to your yoga space today, but also for like observing and being present with yourself. What a joy. You have an option to keep your right knee bent. You can also start to extend your right leg up towards the ceiling. And even flex your right toes back towards your face, stretching through the Achilles, the calf, the hamstring. So if your love language is physical touch, right, self-havening might speak to you. But if your love language is quality time, think about this as like spending quality time with yourself. Or if your love language is words of affirmation, you might shower yourself with some nice words of affirmation here. Acknowledging just how impressive it is that you made it to yoga class, that you're breathing, that you're moving, that you're stretching. What a joy. You have an option to stay here in supine figure 4, either with leg extended or knee bent. You can also release the grip on the back of your leg, bringing your right foot and then left foot to the floor. And at your own leisurely pace, you can roll off to one side, maybe the side you haven't rolled off to yet, if you remember. Press your hands into the floor and press yourself up, making your way back into tabletop for the other side of pigeon pose. From here, you're going to bring your left knee towards left wrist and take your left foot out to the left. Pardon me, left foot out to the right. Left knee to left wrist, left foot out to the right. From here, slide your right leg back, extending the right leg. And again, it can be really useful to take a pillow or pillows under your right hip. We're going to start in a back bend version of pigeon, either with palms on the floor or even fingers tented, shoulders out of the ears, neck long. Look back, make sure right ankle, right knee, and right hip are in line. From here, if you're in pigeon, you're going to start to fold forward, maybe leaning forward a little bit, or even bringing elbows or forearms to floor. Shoulders out of the ears, neck long. As you inhale, feel your ribs gently expand. And as you exhale, let your ribs contract. All right, walk your hands in under your shoulders. Slowly press yourself up. Lift your hips up and back. Slide your left foot back to the left, bringing your knees back into tabletop. And then as you're ready, you're going to turn and lie on your back. If you are in supine figure 4, you can release any grip you have from the backs of your legs. Then everybody together return to your home base of either Savasana or collapsed bridge. And let that posture go. Notice where you might be holding on to some tension in your body. Let it go through the exhale breath. And in both body, mind, and spirit, again, sometimes I really wish that I could let go of this knot in my shoulder. I really wish that I could let go of this worry in my heart. But try as I might, my body just won't relax, right? Or that one worry, just I can't stop looping back to it. And when I observe that happening, I employ imagination. So if there's a part of your body that you can't quite release, or a worry or care on your mind that you're not quite ready to let go of, you might just imagine what it would feel like or what it will feel like to one day let that go. So even if the shoulder is tight, you can sort of envision what it would feel like for the shoulder to relax. Or even if the mind is still a little anxious, you can just think about what it will feel like for the mind to soften. That as the mind gets a little smaller, the heart can get a little bigger. find when thinking about letting go of things, it can be really useful, not simply to let go of something, but to imagine what will take its place. So that you can get really excited for that next step. Whether it's a new hobby or habit, or a new, more expansive belief, or a more joyful feeling. And take your arms out to the side in a big expansive gesture. Bend your knees if they're not already. Roll to the right so that your left hip stacks on top of right hip, keeping your head on the floor. You have an option to stay here. You can also straighten your bottom leg to the back of your mat. You have an option to stay here. You can also kick your top leg out to the right of your mat, stretching the left IT band, outer left thigh. You can keep the back of your head on the floor, or you can look over your left shoulder, bringing your left ear towards the floor. Try to roll the left shoulder down towards the floor. So we're twisting through the spine and abdomen. In traditional Chinese medicine, there's also different meridians in the body, and the heart meridian runs from the hands through the collarbones, right? So from one hand to the other through the shoulders and collarbone. And there's this idea that, like, in Western medicine, we think of the brain as the control center, but in traditional Chinese medicine, the heart is the control center. And so here we're stretching out through the heart meridian, again, running from the palms, through the wrists, through the elbows, shoulders, collarbones, through the heart space. What I think is cool is, like, more and more in Western medicine, we're realizing that, like, our brain is for sure a really big part of what makes us human and what helps us function. But we know now that, for example, like, our gut biome affects our emotions, affects our decision making, right? We know that like, our heart space actually does have more control than we think it does. There's this, I can't remember who said it, but maybe Brene Brown, but there's this idea that, we'd like to believe that we are thinking beings who occasionally feel, but we know now, not just anecdotally, but like through scientific evidence as well, that we are feeling beings that occasionally think. So as we stretch through the heart meridian, I invite you to maybe just experiment with what it might feel like to acknowledge that our heart center is just as much a control for our body as our brain. If you're looking over your left shoulder, slowly roll the back of your head to the floor. If your top leg is kicked out, bend your top leg. Then bend your bottom leg. With or without the use of your hands, you're going to roll your left hip back down to the floor. And we'll go right into the other side. Roll to the left so that your right hip stacks on top of left hip. Roll the right shoulder down to the floor, again, opening through the heart meridian. Option to keep both knees bent. You can also straighten your bottom leg to the back of your mat. And if it feels good, you can kick your top leg out to the right of your mat. I'm taking a different variation on this side because of a hip, like a tendon issue in my right hip. So again, the sides and what you choose per side does not need to mirror each other. You have an option to keep the back of your head on the floor, or you can look over your right shoulder. So we're opening through the heart meridian, we're twisting the spine. It's also right, it's an abdominal wall twist. I think I said this on the other side, but good for digestion, which I think particularly during seasonal transitions, our stomachs can get a little bit confused. This is a nice way to kind of gently twist and massage the internal organs, as well as your stomach. We'll take 3 slow breaths here. If you're looking over your right shoulder, slowly roll the back of your head to the floor. If your top leg is kicked out, bend your top leg. If your bottom leg is straight, bend your bottom leg. So knees rest on top of the other. With or without the use of your hands, you can roll your right hip back down. And for final savasana, you can stay in your collapsed bridge with your knees resting together. You can also straighten your legs, take your arms down by your side, and open your arms and legs, or as much or as little as you'd like. Close your eyes. Take a breath in through your nose. Anything you'd like to let go of, exhale it out. You're welcome to continue with some circular breathing, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. If you'd like a more intentional version of that, you can join me in a few rounds of 4, 7, 8 breathing. You'll inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold the oxygen in for a count of 7. And then slowly exhale through your mouth through puckered lips for a count of 8. You can take a few rounds to figure out how fast to inhale versus exhale. If after a few rounds you find it still difficult to catch your breath, you are welcome to keep the same ratio, but instead you'll inhale for 2, hold for like 3.5 seconds, and then exhale for 4. Relax through your head, shoulders, and hands. Let your heels be heavy on the floor. Seal your lips. Place your tongue on the roof of your mouth just behind your teeth. And begin. Inhale through your nose for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through your mouth. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through nose. 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale through your mouth. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start to count in your own head. Inhale for 4. Pause for 7. Counting helps to center your mind, giving your mind something to do. Slowly exhale for 8. We'll do 2 more minutes of 4, 7, 8 breathing. Inhaling for 4. Hold for 7. Slowly exhale through puckered lips for 8. Let's do one more full round of 4, 7, 8 breathing. Whenever you're ready, just returning your breath to normal, in and out through your nose.
in that breathing exercise, we inhale and then we hold for a while, right? And then we let go. Whether it's a breathing exercise, a yoga posture, or something else going on in your life, it is completely fine to be in the inhaling part. It is completely normal to be in the holding, pausing part. And it is also part of that cycle to be part of the letting go part. So as we think about what to let go in this season, so that we can make room for more things, it's also okay if you're not quite ready to let go. And if you feel like you're in that pause and hold part, just remember that the exhale is coming and it's there for you whenever it feels right. Take an inhale, feel your body rise. Whenever you're ready, let it go. Exhale, let the breath go, body fall. Honesty without tact is cruelty, or at least that's one of my favorite quotes. Honesty without tact is cruelty. And I often find that after a yoga class, I am in my most honest, but also tactful space with myself so that I can be clear in my vision towards myself, but in a way that's kind and compassionate. And I find that journaling, putting pen to paper, literally taking something out of my mind and putting it somewhere else is a really wonderful extension of a yoga, asana, and pranayama practice. So if life is taking you somewhere else, you're welcome to silently show yourself out of the Zoom room. If you'd like to simply like listen and contemplate, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, at your own pace, you can roll off, rest yourself up, and grab a pen and paper for our little journaling part of class. And remember that with journaling, this is yours and yours alone. It is something that you can like tear up after class. It is something that you can frame after class. You're just keeping your journal, but remember that this is for you. And of course, if it's meaningful to share with someone else, you can do, but this is really just something for you to share with yourself. So keep that in mind, that this is just like your yoga practice is private. This can be private as well and just for you. Already October 4th. Okay. Okay. We'll start very open-ended. If there's anything that you would like to simply put pen to paper, an acknowledgement about something in your life, maybe something that came up for you strongly during your yoga practice, you are welcome to write that out now. Again, this is kind of anything that might feel good if you get it out of your brain and into something else. I feel like there's this nice transference that happens when we can release something from the brain, put it onto paper. So anything that you'd like to put out there, whether it's simply an acknowledgement, a worry or care, or something that you thought about during your yoga practice, you're welcome to write about that now.
If any of these prompts particularly speak to you, you're welcome to continue to write on them and or know that you can always come back to them after class as well. Next, I invite you to write down 20 things that you're grateful for, 20 gratitudes. These can be people, places, food, sensations. I often find the first 5 are really easy, right? Like friends, family. The next 5 can be kind of like, I'm not sure what I'm writing. And by the end, I'm like overwhelmed with, like, I'm grateful for chunky sweaters and Thai food and scented candles, right? There's I think, a million things to be grateful for. And it can be really nice to acknowledge them. So 20 things you're grateful for. All right, the season that we are currently called in is often called autumn, but it is also sometimes referred to as fall. And as you may started to notice, there are leaves literally falling off of trees. These trees are not dead, they are simply in a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. As we enter into this autumnal season, what are you ready to let go of? Sometimes as we release something, whether it's a relationship, a limiting self-belief, a habit, it can be easy to be really hard on ourselves or that situation and think, like, why did I ever have that habit? Or why was I ever in that friendship? But I really believe that everything we do is has gotten us to this point, and even if it wasn't always pretty, it helped us survive up until this point. So as you think about what you're ready to move on from, you might also take a moment to reflect on what that experience or relationship or belief or habit taught you, or how it might have served you in some way, even if it's no longer serving you. So taking a moment rather than to be harsh on yourself for a situation, just to express perhaps even gratitude or acknowledgement of how it's made you this person, right? Who decided that on a rainy Tuesday you would practice yoga and journal, right? Like, I think that's pretty cool. So thinking next, when we do let go, for example, of a habit, we make room for a new habit. When we let go of one relationship, we make space for perhaps a different friendship or work relationship or romantic relationship to blossom. So as you think about what you're letting go of, I also invite you to think about what might fill that place or take that place. If, for example, you're letting go of a limiting belief like that you are not enough, what belief might you add to your palette, right? Maybe that you're really smart or like witty or kind. I had a yoga student once talk to me after class, and she was like, taken me a long time to acknowledge this, but like, I'm really funny. And I used to think that I wasn't funny, but now I know that I am. And I thought, what a wonderful realization to have, or self-confidence to have, right? That you're funny. As we look to this coming season, which might present for some of us, myself included, our own challenges with, like I struggle when it's really cold. I struggle with seasonal affective disorder. If this season is difficult for you, or even if it's your favorite season, how can you take care of yourself this autumn? What can you do to take care of yourself? Whether that's getting cozy and watching a fun movie every week, or making some good soups, or talking to a professional therapist, for example. How can you take care of yourself this autumnal season? And last but not least, in these monthly journaling that we do, we always end with a word, a phrase, a mantra, or a sentence that you can take with you into this next month. So it can be something like peace, can be something like I am enough, can be something I release that which is not meant for me, right? But again, it can be a word, a phrase, a mantra, a sentence. And this is something, again, that you can keep in your journal, that you can literally put in your back pocket or put on a Post-it note by your mirror, or just keep just to yourself. But your mantra for the month. Right. And again, with this journal, you are welcome to keep this for your own records. You can tear it up if that feels meaningful. If you have a fire safe, emphasis on fire safe way to burn this and that feels meaningful, you're welcome to do that. Or just keep it and maybe reflect on it October of next year or the next time we journal. Thank you all for joining me for class tonight. It was a real joy to be in community with each of you, and I hope to practice with you soon. Bye, friends.